climate scientists, climate emotion scientists have come up, and they are still coming up because the research is in the how do you say, diapers yet, is defining. So what do people really feel when they encounter the information or experience that climate change is happening and the environmental is being destructed? And they're just some of the emotions. There's way more. And I think there will be still more terms coming up as we go, because probably there's solastalgia, for instance, an emotion that has been invented, which talks about that you are losing the land and the landscape that you feel very connected with. And there's a grief and longing connected to that. And so that's one example of emotion that is being defined, because we lack the emotional words for describing how we feel about the climate destruction. So there are some of them that we know of. We use them in every day, or at least we notice how they feel in ourselves. And I'm gonna talk a little bit more in detail about some of them. But while you look at that emotions wheel, you might also just notice what are the primary emotions you feel about climate destruction now, and just see yeah, whether this is something that or there's an emotion that stands out from them all that you feel about environmental destruction. And I want to talk a little bit more about some of them, which are more resonant to me and interesting for me, also from the perspective of research and climate activism. And one of the things that people feel is overwhelmed, again, because climate change is very, very complex. And if you don't have a knowledge of biologists, or if you're not involved in some very in a profession that knows something more about the existing state of the world and a climate change, it can be very, very overwhelming, because you can read a lot, but then you might not still understand even the 1% of that. And there's a lot of information. And as I said, sometimes consuming information also can be linked with more stress. But of course, at the root of it all is the climate change and is what we are doing to the world. It's not the information, it's the event itself. But it's very easy to feel overwhelmed when you are consuming news, or trying to understand and comprehend what's happening with the climate crisis in the world. And this is very, very common emotion that people feel, especially young people, when you come across all the information that's there. If it hasn't been like kind of seeded in you from the childhood, it's very difficult to understand and orientate. Where do you stand? Where do you start action? What is more impactful? What is not that impactful? Do I fly? Am I allowed to eat meat now? Or, all these questions, which can be overwhelming throughout. And it's not only at the start. I mean, I feel overwhelmed now and then again, because the world situation and events are coming at us quite frequently, and in quite a high level at the moment. Then we talk about also powerlessness, and that when we talk about youth work, it especially comes up there, because young people don't have the authority or power that much. Yes, we can talk about some influencers and a lot of IT skills or social media skills that young people have, and they might exercise their power through there. But if we talk about decision making and influencing the big processes, especially concerning climate change, the powerlessness is something that comes often, and it's linked with helplessness, and inability maybe to see how you can impact anything, if anything. Yeah. So this is also widespread, again, when we talk about global crisis. And the same thing, we can link the COVID-19. It was also a lot of powerlessness, because if you're just a simple citizen and you don't have access to, I don't know, medical research, or if you're not in a decision-making power, you cannot, and your government is making stupid, I don't know, ideas on how people should act or not act, you don't have much voice to change anything. The eco anxiety or climate anxiety. This is a term that was very widely spread and initiated to become more popular by Greta Thunberg when she was talking about emotions that she feels about the world. And this is also the term which has been Googled the most, and its Googling has risen up 200%. I think the last year they were researching how often do they do people research that term, and yeah, they're more looking for what is it, how to deal with that, and so what we can understand from that is that more and more people are probably feeling that and looking for resources, what to do with the feelings that they get. What is important here also to say that and when we talk about anxiety in mental health, it is usually for something that we cannot really predict, but we imagine that there's a threat and what the threat can be doing for us. But when we talk about eco-anxiety, it's very practical anxiety because it is existential threat for our livelihood, for our lives, for the lives of the people and animals we love, for the nature that we feel connected with. So it's very normal to feel anxious about the future of the world. It's very needed to feel anxious because it motivates also for the action. If we don't have any emotion, we are not really willing to act or do anything about that. But of course, since eco-anxiety is again one of these terms that is researched quite a lot, what we want to catch is when anxiety becomes pathological and it influences your day-to-day living. And as I mentioned at the beginning, it can lead to the changes in our sleeping patterns, eating patterns, our ability to socialize, and so on. And when I mention all that and everything of those things are affected, of course, our mental and physical well-being goes down as well, which means that it affects our ability to function day to day. So as a therapists and as a youth workers, we really need to recognize when what we feel is practical and is driving our action, and when what we feel already needs medical or some kind of therapy intervention for us to function actually. And we are quite useless, of course, if we go to this pathological eco-anxiety mode, because we are not able to affect any change at all. But that's also a moment for us to take care of ourselves.